Hello, Dolphin students. Professor Meeks here. We are launching our argumentative writing unit, one of my favorite things to teach. I am here today to go over some of the basics and foundations of writing an effective argument at the college level. I'm going to walk you through all the steps of what I expect this week in your assignments. This week, you'll be expected to read a writing prompt, respond to it, unpack it, and annotate articles as you did the previous week using the Harvard annotation process and the other source we use. And you will submit that annotation. You did an excellent job. Some scanned, some people ended up writing commentary in the margins digitally. Excellent job of scanning, and I was able to see your thought process. So please make sure you read the feedback on that. And you're going to plan an essay, and you will be writing a strong thesis. I will walk through all of those steps today in this video lecture. I hope this is helpful. I will try to keep the video as brief as I can, because I'm a student too of my last part of my doctoral studies, and I don't like listening to long videos either. So let's get started. Okay. To begin with, writing from a prompt, many of you have experience from previous writing courses, high school or other college club level classes where you've written from a prompt. I will be emphasizing some key things to remember as you write from this prompt, making sure that you heard it from me, because I will be holding you accountable for the content of this lecture. Now, we're writing argumentative writing. It is very important that you delineate that from informational writing. Argumentative writing has what I call, Professor Meeks's word, is more of a pit bull tone. It is relentless. It is assertive writing. You stand on your stance and you don't let go until the last period in your essay. Informational writing does not have that same vigor. So I will be talking about that throughout our course. Now, let's get started. This is a writing prompt. From here to here is what I want you to see. Okay. Typically, a writing prompt will sometimes, not typically, sometimes it will give you background information. You can see there our topic is TikTok. And this actually was our writing prompt for our exit essay several years ago. So hats off to the exit exam essay committee and for coming up with something that is so relevant, several years later. Nevertheless, this gives you some background information, okay? Kind of gets the juices flowing. And then we have here the actual prompt. This is where you want your antennas to rise. When you're reading your prompt, it can be a case of pass or fail if you don't write exactly what the prompt is asking you to. So often my students will write near the prompt about the one piece of the prompt, but they never get to the nitty-gritty of writing about the prompt. So this is what I'm going to focus on today. All right. Now, notice it says write a well-researched argumentative essay. Very good idea for you to highlight or jot these words down when you are reading your prompt. Next, it says in which you take a clear position. That is your stance. You cannot have a double stance. So let's see what our options are. We see here TikTok has a predominantly positive or negative impact on society. I see some very important keywords. Notice how I'm highlighting these. This is the focus of our prompt. If you write outside of this, you will probably fail your essay in any course, particularly this one and on your exit exam. Then it goes on to say, support your argument with scholarly sources, opinions, relevant examples. In this case, we have articles that we'll be using. Oftentimes it'll say, support your argument with attached sources, because they typically have given them to you. Now, what you will see is I haven't highlighted a lot of other words. I think about this as when you receive a beautiful present, a birthday gift, and or any other type of gift wrapped up, you typically throw away the wrapping paper and you keep the gift. All of this, we don't necessarily need to figure out where our focus is. We need it to make sure we're following the directions. We know we're writing an argumentative essay. We know that we have to take a stance. Notice I highlighted both positive and negative. Here's very important. Listen to this. When you have your prompt and you're expected to take a stance, some people go into, as soon as they see it's about a topic that is near and dear to them, they take that stance and they never let it go, and they can make a plus 100 on their essay using the appropriate sources correctly. However, there are times when you take a stance, you may go, oh, I absolutely hate TikTok. And you already have that attitude and you haven't read the articles. And then you read the article, you go, wow, I didn't realize there were so many positive things I can say about it. When you are writing, no one is really concerned about your true opinion. They really want to know, can you support your stance with evidence from the text and argue it using the quote sandwich we learned, summarizing it appropriately, paraphrasing it appropriately, and extending your argument across 1,000 words. So whether or not you agree or disagree with, no one would probably ever be concerned about that. The most important thing is that you take a stance, and this is what I've often told students as I've prepared them for ACT, SAT, and beyond. Make sure that whatever stance you take, you probably should take the stance where the sources best support whatever stance you take. Okay? It could be your real stance, that's your real opinion, but the best effort should go towards which one does the source best support, and go with that. That's just my 2 cents on that. Now, it goes on. The rest of the prompt tells you a few more directions. In this case, in our class, we aren't using MLA. We're not using Chicago. We will use MLA unless someone has given me an email saying that they really need to use APA. Now, consider addressing counter arguments. This is going to be important because when you start highlighting and annotating your sources, you may be against TikTok, but you may highlight something that's for TikTok and use that to set up your counter arguments. More about counter arguments later. Notice the word requirement. So all of these are important pieces to know that you're writing what you're expected to write so that you can aim high for that perfect essay. Now, I don't have the 2 articles here. These are just fictitious, assuming this is a full article. I just gave you an article summary and a title. Now, I haven't decided on positive or negative. I want to read this article summary. I'm reading a real article. I'm pretending to read a real article. I can see here that this article has information about impact on adolescent mental health, attention span, but it doesn't really tell me whether or not now it tells me that it's positive aspects, both positive aspects, and it includes information about body image, and negative aspects. So I can use this for either stance, okay? Expert analysis, so we have information that can support. Let's look at this one. Data privacy and security risk in TikTok, a global concern. This already sounds like this one is going to be more against the stance that says it has had a negative impact. It says this article investigates TikTok's data collection practices, security vulnerabilities and government regulations, concerns over privacy platform. When we go on to see, we will see that this is how it has had a negative effect. So this one has some positive, this one has some negative. If these were your 2 sources and you were on a time test, which your exit exam will be, however, your assignment in my class, it's time, but of course you have your week to do your work, not 2 hours the way you would on an exit exam. I would probably go with the negative effects because I have more fodder, I have a lot more information, I have a lot more material here to use. But if you would like to use positive, that's perfectly fine. So now I'm going to take a stance. I'm going to go with negative effect. So I'm going to go ahead and reiterate my focus words for my prompt. They were these words. It's an argumentative essay, and I need to make sure I'm writing something about TikTok having in this case, negative impact on society. I like to use the exact words from the prompt for this part of my writing as I'm planning, because I don't water it down with my own paraphrasing. Positive, negative impact, I use it in its pure form. Now I have my focus. I'm literally sitting here rapping on my desk saying, I have my focus. This is my topic. Let me give you some non-examples of what some students will do. They'll just write TikTok. They'll just write benefits. And guess what? We've got to not talk about just individuals. We need to make sure we're talking about society and the impact. Some people will tell me all the wonderful things that's on TikTok, never ever stating whether or not it has a negative impact on society or a positive impact on society. So pulling those words from the prompt in their pure form will help you stay focused. Now, what I want to talk about next is I want to form a thesis. By definition, listen carefully. I want to give you some keywords. A thesis it's a concise statement that presents the main argument or claim of an essay. So it's a concise statement. It presents the main argument or claim of an essay. Very important. When we call it a claim, we sometimes use the word we sometimes use the word stance or position. Remember, you can only take one. Well, Professor Meeks, I kind of see some negatives and positives. You've got to take a stand. You've got to pick one. Okay? You cannot go back and forth in your argument. That's a surefire way to fail an argumentative essay that is prompt-based. All right? It serves as the central idea. And also, it's the position the writer, let me fix these errors here. It's the position the writer intends to prove or explore throughout the essay. Now, that goes back to that pit bull tone. Throughout the essay, you are tenacious, you are unrelenting, you're constantly saying another negative effect. This is another way that it has damaged society. You're using all of those words to marry with your theme or your thesis, okay? Now it's time for us to write our thesis. Notice I'm going to use these thesis words in my thesis. It's okay to use some of the exact words here. That way we keep our thesis pointed towards what was initially written into the prompt. I have formulated one here. Notice my keywords. I need to make sure I have TikTok. I've read so many theses over the years, and students will say it. You've got to make sure that you put the word in there that is the main idea. It has, notice I use predominantly. It is okay to do that from your prompt. It is not considered plagiarism if you repeat a word from your prompt. Notice I have society in here. And then I want you to think of an eating utensil called a fork. I want you to think about the tines or the spokes on a fork. This is when you're writing an argument, you may have learned to write a general thesis, and where it's all encompassing, you can just say TikTok has had a predominantly positive impact on society, period. That is a general thesis. In an argument, it is very effective to go ahead and think about a three-pronged fork and give me 3 reasons why it has had a positive effect. I have one reason here: fostering creativity, providing a platform for marginalized voices, and it offers educational content. I could leave it there, or I can plug in a little bit of my negative. I could have left a period there. Now I have a strong thesis. Very important. Let's do a double check. Is it concise? Yes, it gives the main idea along with 3 subtopics. It presents my stance. I'm only discussing, oh, I thought I said I was going to discuss positive. So I'm going to I'll go with positive this time. I do have a negative thesis. Let me pull that one. I do have one that is negative, since I did say I was going to do negative. And I'll dissect it the same way. Let's see. I was playing around with this a little bit, so here's a negative one. It has largely had a negative, and here are my keywords again: tick-tock, tick-tock. I use my thesis words. Negative impact on society. Perfect. Now I'm going to give my 3 prongs. Effects on mental health. It spreads misinformation. And it has data and privacy issues. And notice they put in kind of like the despite, just like the other one did. Okay, so this would be my negative one. I would have to pick one. So I said I would go with negative because I said my sources would support those a little bit better. Now I'm going to provide my outline. Before I jump into that, I want to do a couple of descriptions of what the purpose of the outline. While some individuals have found success, I'm going to pop over to the recording. Though some individuals have found success without using an outline, it is not a best practice. It's really important to plan your writing, just as if you're going on an expensive vacation. You just don't want to pop up into the city. You kind of want to take a look and do some research. It makes sense to plan your writing in this event. When you there's some students I've had, they would not plan their writing and they did very well. Could they have done better if they had planned it? I believe so. I believe so. So it is a best practice to plan your writing. It's not an effective approach. The reason why we want to plan is because planning helps with clarity. It helps keep your voice very clear. It brings everything together and makes it cohesive and coherent. It gives you a stronger support for the argument because you've actually thought through how I'm going to use these sources to support my writing. Planning an essay, it also helps organize your ideas and it makes the flow logical. It provides better evidence, use of your evidence, and it results in a clear, well-structured essay. So I want to go through planning. Now, for your assignment this week, you will be expected to turn in and submit a plan. Your plan can be a web, it can be an outline, or any way you've planned successfully in the past. That's my keyword here as I pop over to my outline. So you don't have to necessarily use an outline the way Professor Meeks is using. You can also use, like I mentioned, a web or any planning sheet that works for you. Notice my outline, just for those folks, I'm not sure if they still teach this in, when I taught 12th grade English, we taught outlining, and students were reminded that outlining forms a pattern of number, letter, number, letter. So this is Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, and so on and so on. So notice everyone's outline, whether you're using a web or an outline format, you need to start with an introduction and end with a conclusion, and you need at least 2 body paragraphs. Notice this one is outlined for positive. I will go ahead and go over both since I obviously switched my mind in the middle of me making this document. Okay. Now, let's take a look at this. So you need to have, let's see, this person, if they were writing this, it would probably be too much information for our, let's see what we had up here for positive. Creativity, marginalized voices, and educational content. Creativity, marginalized voices, educational content. For the sake of this assignment, this would be their counterclaim. So that last paragraph before your conclusion would be the counterclaim. So I'm going to ask that you do three bodies, or you can have four for your assignment. But make sure that last paragraph before your conclusion is your counterclaim. More about that later. Notice how I have each one of the titles from my list and my thesis. It's the title of it's my subtopic. Okay. Beneath there, I have an ABC because remember it's number, letter, then number, letter. So I'm going to do a brief overview. I would suggest using the same format, background information, introduction to the debate, that it is very controversial, particularly now. And then we're going to end with our thesis statement. Everyone's outline or web should have a thesis statement in it. Everyone. Fostering creativity, I've given 3 examples. And of course, these came from my sources, pretend you're looking at 2 full journal articles, not just a little text box of a summary. And notice the prompt said that you can also use relevant examples. JU exit exam does include personal experiences. Sometimes you will have an essay they don't want any of your personal experiences, but it's okay here. Relevant examples can be your personal experiences, but it can't be all your personal experiences. It needs to be heavily supported by the evidence from the sources and the expert opinions in the sources. And this, my friends, is how you would submit your assignment. You would be submitting again a few things this week. Number 1, you will be submitting your prompt. You'll be reading the prompt, okay, carefully. You're then going to annotate your prompt based on annotate your article. You're going to read your prompt, then read your article, and then annotate it according to you finding your stance. And then you're going to plan or outline your essay, and you're going to also add a strong thesis. That is the work for this week. If you have any questions, as usual, I'm an email away. And thank you so much for your timely submissions and your wonderful emails. If ever a link or something does not work, please feel free to reach out to me. I try to check emails at least once a day. Sometimes several times a day. When I initially release an assignment, I usually check multiple times a day. But please feel free to continue to reach out to me, and much success this week.